In this lesson, we are going to sign up users. But before doing that, I'm going to move some code around so that our code is more scalable. First of all, I'm going to create a source directory and move our index.js inside that and also our models. Okay. Next thing I would do is I would add a start script saying to start our server start, which will run our node_mon. So node_mon is source and index.js. If in the previous lesson you installed node_mon locally and it didn't work, please install node_mon globally and it will work. So let's do npm run start. Okay, everything is running. Next thing I want to do is I want to move this schema validation to character model, that since it belongs there and I don't want to pollute my mutation with validations here. So let's move this code to the character model. So we'll go to character and create a function. Let's name it const validate character, and let's paste the code in. Import joy and then we'll do schema dot validate, pass in the payload, so the character here, and character, finally return it. Maybe I don't need this schema const, I will just chain the validate. Yeah, I think that's simpler and cleaner. Finally return this. Now we want to export both the character model and our validate function. So we'll do validate character and export the validate character function. Finally, let's import both the character and validate function, validate character from the model character and use it in our mutation. We'll do validate character and we'll do payload, and the rest is the same thing. Cool. The next refactoring I want to do is actually move our typeDefs into a schema.graphql file. So let's first create one. Name it schema.graphql. And let's move this. Cut, paste, and we don't want the typeDefs here. We can actually use so we have to read this as a file and put it into a string. So we can do this using Node. We want two things. We want the fs, which is the file package in Node. So I'm going to do const fs and I would need the path as well. So I'm going to get those two modules, and here I'm going to read the schema.graphql file. So fs.read file sing, and I'm going to use the path join the directory name that we have and the name of the schema.graphql. So schema.graphql, finally do utf8. Okay, so as you can see, it's much better to write our schema like this so that it is properly formatted and syntax highlighted. It's better than putting into template literals. Cool. So everything is working. Let's check it out. if everything is working. So we'll do get characters. Yes, it works. And our store character, let's do store character. Yeah, failed to create character due to validation errors. Name is not allowed to be empty. Okay, let's do test and the status of alive. Cool, everything works fine. Now to do sign up. Of course, first thing we need to do is actually create our schema and do a type user. We'll do type user. He will have ID is ID, and he will have a name, the string is required, and email string that is required, and finally a password, also a string that is required. Next we'll add a mutation. We'll do sign up, and it's going to, so I'm not going to type in it like this. We are going to have an input, type input here. So so without actually in GraphQL, without having to write all this here, we can have a type input. So I'm going to do input user. So I will do it up here. I will do type user input, which is going to have the following fields. So it's the same things: name string, email string, and password also. So those are the inputs that we would require from the user. And finally here I'm going to say user is going to be in the type of input. And what are we going to return from this mutation? We are going to return a auth payload. So let's create that type, auth payload. So the auth payload will have a token, which is going to be a string, and of course a user, going to be in the type user. So the return value is going to be auth payload. All right. So our schema is done. Now to create a resolver. So let's go to mutation and do sign up. Actually, we have to do the payload here, and of course we have to create our user model. So let's create a new file, user.js. It's going to have the same, most of the same things as character. So I'm going to copy. Yes, we need mongoose, we need the schema. It's going to have a name, it's going to have an email, it's going to have a password. What else? I'm going to make the name have min length, which is another validation that we can put in mongoose, and a max length. So the min length is 1, max length is 50 characters. For the email, we are going to have the same thing. Min length can be 5, and max length I'm going to put 255. And also one last thing, I'm going to make it unique. So there cannot be two accounts with the same email. Finally, the password is going to be a string, and it's going to be required, and min length of 5 and max length. So this in mongoose we are going to store the encrypted version of the password. So I'm going to put a big number here. Maybe it's not needed to have 1024, but I'm going to keep it like that. Finally, let's create the model. User, mongoose model, user. We'll create the validate user function. We'll get the user, and here goes. So min is 1 and the max is 50, and it's going to be required. The next one, email, is going to be string required, and plus it has to be the type email. Finally, the password string. I'm not going to allow empty. Is required. And I'm going to put the min and the max as well. Cool. Validate user. Finally, update this to be user. User. Cool. How easy was that? Okay, so we have a user model that has a name, email, and a password. It has min length, max length, and required. And email is unique. We do the validation of validate user, and that's it. Okay, our user model is done. So here, let's import our user model. We'll have the user and user from user model. Next, in our sign up, we have to first check for errors. So I'm going to do const value error. We get either one of these. Validate user, pass in the payload, and if there is an error, we are going to do the same thing as we did here. If there is no error, then what do we have to do? Well, we have to encrypt the password. So let's do that. Password is, so to encrypt, we are going to use a package called Bcrypt. So Bcrypt, we haven't installed it yet, but we'll get to that. Has a function called hash, which is going to take in the payload password, and let's do this. Let's make this user, and yeah, actually we can't put, we have to get the user like this, because in our schema we have sent the input of user, so all the arguments are going to come under the user key. So we'll do destructuring of user, and then we'll use the user password to hash, and here we'll put 10, which is going to be our salt. So so Bcrypt needs a salt to do the hashing. We will store the salt in the password as well. You will see that later on. Okay, so we encrypted our password. Then I think we have to register the user. Const register user. I will do await user create and pass in our value. Well, this value will contain the user password, the password that the user inputted, but we need the encrypted one. So I'm going to do let's use the spread operator, and I'm going to say the password is the password. Oh, actually, then we actually so when the user signs up, we are going to validate its input, and if there are errors, we are going to throw user input error, and then we are going to encrypt our password and then register our user. After registering our user, for now, let's just return the user. But in actual reality, I want to get a token and then send the token and the user. In our schema, we have actually said auth payload is going to be the token and the user. Okay, let's create the token as well. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to install a couple of things. I'm going to install Bcrypt, which we just used, and also I'm going to use something called install something called jsonwebtoken to generate our tokens. So npm I jsonwebtoken. Okay, and so once we have the token, we can actually create a token. I mean, once we have JWT, we can create a token. Const token equals to await JWT and use the sign. So first let's require it. Const jwt equals require JSON web token. Cool. So what are the information that we are going to store in our JSON web token? For now, let's store just the user ID. And maybe later on we can actually store other things like user role and other information about the authenticated user. For now, only the ID. So to get the ID, let's do register user underscore ID. So register user will have underscore ID. Cool. And of course, this JWT sign function requires a secret. Let's add a top secret. Let's add a top secret key. I know that it's not wise to store the top secret key in our code. I'm going to move this to an environment file later on. Okay, I think we are ready. So let's return the token and the user. Of course, this user contains the password. We actually don't want the password to be sent back to the client. So only let's send the user without the password. We can use a function called pick in Lodash. Yeah, we'll probably need Lodash later on, so let's install it. npm install Lodash and require it. Lodash is Lodash, and this Lodash includes a function called pick, which we can pick the fields or the keys that we need. So we'll do dot pick the object and the key. So I only want the name and the email, nothing else. Cool. Yup, I think that is it. Okay. What else? We actually don't want the GQL here now. Can remove that. Everything else looks good. Okay. I'm going to now start our server. Oh, await is only valid in async function. True. We have to do async here. Okay. Sign up. User must be input type but got user input. User is user input. Oops. So this is a user input type, so the type has to be input, not type. I'll restart. I think we are good. All right, we get a deprecation warning, says ensure index is deprecated. This is coming from mongoose. So we use the unique key in mongoose to validate the email to be unique. So that means we need to add another thing over here, which is use create index. Use create index to be true. Okay, let's register a user. So let's create a mutation, name it register user. So we are going to use the sign up mutation and pass in the values. So we have the name, we have the email, and finally the password. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Oh. And once for the mutation, after mutation, I want the token and I want the user's name and email. So I want those two values back. Let's run this. Payload is not defined. I think I have payload somewhere. Yeah, it should be user. And yeah, we should use the user object to pass to our validate user function. I think that was the error. And also I just remembered that we have to import Bcrypt as well. We haven't done that as well. So const Bcrypt require Bcrypt. Cool. Okay, now I think we should be good. Let's run it again. Give it a refresh and then run it again. All right, yes, we get the values that we want. We get the token and we get the name and the email. That's it. We can check our MongoDB as well if we have all the information. This is the characters collection and this is the user collection. Cool. That is it. Thank you for watching and please do subscribe